Your grocery bags are secretly a garden, and you've been throwing away hundreds of dollars worth of free food every single week without even realizing it. Every time you toss a sprouted onion, rinse off garlic skins, or scrape seeds out of a squash, you are throwing away living plants. Not potential plants, not maybe one-day plants. Right now, actively growing, biologically ready-to-root plants that cost you nothing extra because you already paid for them at the checkout line. And today, we are going to change that completely. What we are covering today is not a list of tips. It is a full system for turning your kitchen into a seed vault that never runs dry. We are talking about crops that multiply themselves, herbs that spread on their own, vegetables that come back year after year from a single purchase, all starting from things most people drop in the compost bin, or worse, the trash. Some of what you will learn today can give you fresh food within weeks. Other techniques will establish crops that feed your household for years, even decades, from a single grocery store trip. So whether you have a sprawling backyard or a few pots on a balcony, this applies to you. Let us get into it. We are starting with something that sounds like it should not work at all. And yet once you see it happen, you will never look at the produce aisle the same way again. The leafy crown sitting on top of a store-bought pineapple, that spiky green rosette of leaves that everyone twists off and tosses, is actually a fully dormant plant just waiting for the right conditions to wake up. Inside that crown are growth nodes, biological structures packed with cells ready to produce roots the moment they make contact with moisture. This is not a trick or a workaround. It is simply how pineapple plants reproduce, and you can take full advantage of it without spending a single extra dollar. Here is how you do it. When you bring a fresh pineapple home, slice the top off cleanly, leaving just a little bit of fruit flesh attached to the base of the crown. That small amount of fruit is important. It gives the plant a little extra energy as it begins establishing roots. Let the cut ends sit out and dry for a full day. This seals the wound and prevents rot when you introduce moisture. After that, you have two options. Place the crown in a glass of water so the base just touches the surface, or plant it directly into loose, well-draining soil. Either way, within a few weeks, you will notice something remarkable happening. The older outer leaves may yellow and fall off, but new growth will emerge from the very center. That is your signal that roots are forming and the plant is committed to surviving. From there, it is just a matter of time, and the timeline will genuinely surprise you. Pineapple plants are slow by most vegetable gardening standards, but slow does not mean disappointing. Over the course of 12 to 18 months, the plant grows steadily, pushing out long, sword-shaped leaves in a symmetrical rosette. Then one day, a flower spike emerges from the very center of the plant. That spike develops into a full pineapple, growing right up out of the leaves like something from a tropical dream. It takes between 18 and 24 months from a grocery store crown to a harvestable fruit, but you started for free, and the plant itself is genuinely beautiful enough to earn its place as an indoor plant, whether it fruits or not. In warm climates, pineapple plants thrive outdoors year-round. In colder regions, keep them in containers that can move inside when temperatures drop. The point is this: the next time you buy a pineapple, you are not just buying fruit, you are buying a plant. Start treating it that way. What grows underground is just as powerful as what grows above it, and the next two crops prove that in the most dramatic way possible. Sweet potatoes and regular potatoes are two of the most calorie-dense, nutritionally complete crops a home gardener can grow. They are also two of the easiest to get for free, because the ones sitting in your kitchen right now are already trying to reproduce. That sprouted potato in the back of your pantry with the pale reaching shoots growing off it is not going bad. It is going to work. Here is where it gets interesting, because one sprouted potato handled correctly does not become one new plant. It becomes many. With regular potatoes, you can cut a sprouted tuber into several pieces, making sure each piece has at least one sprout, called an ipon, attached to it. Let the cut pieces rest in open air for a full day so the exposed flesh dries and toughens slightly. This dramatically reduces the risk of rot once they are in the ground. Then plant each piece about 4 inches deep in loose soil, eye facing upward, and wait. Each piece becomes its own independent plant. Each plant, by the end of the season, will produce somewhere between 5 and 10 new potatoes. Do the math on that. One sprouted potato from your pantry, handled right, can yield 50 or more potatoes by harvest time. Sweet potatoes work differently, and the method is just as satisfying. Place a sweet potato in water. You can use toothpicks to suspend it so only the bottom half is submerged, and within a week or two, shoots called slips will begin pushing out from the skin. Once those slips reach about 5 inches long, twist them free from the tuber and drop them into a glass of water on their own. In just a few days, you will see white roots threading out from the base of each slip. At that point, they are ready for soil. Each slip becomes a vine that can spread 3 to 4 feet in every direction. The leaves are edible and can be harvested throughout the growing season like a leafy green. Underground, each plant is busy producing 3 to 8 new sweet potatoes over the course of 4 to 6 months. And that original grocery store sweet potato that started everything? It keeps producing slips for weeks, meaning one tuber can generate dozens of individual plants before the season even begins. Now, if someone you know grows tomatoes, pay close attention to what we are covering next, because they are sitting on something valuable and they do not even know it. Every tomato plant regularly grows small secondary shoots in the joint where a branch meets the main stem. Growers call these suckers, and most of them pinch them off regularly because they draw energy away from the fruit-producing parts of the plant. This is standard practice. Growers do it without a second thought, and those suckers get dropped on the ground or tossed in the compost. What most people do not realize is that each of those discarded suckers is a complete rooting-ready cutting. You do not need any special powder or gel to get them going. You do not need a greenhouse or a humidity tent. You simply take the sucker, push the lower end into moist soil, or set it in a glass of water, and within days it begins forming roots. Within weeks, it is a fully established tomato plant producing fruit. Ask any neighbor, community gardener, or local grower if you can have their suckers during pruning season. They will almost always say yes without hesitation, because from their perspective, you are doing them a favor by removing waste. From your perspective, you are walking away with a season's worth of free tomato plants. If you start early enough in the growing season, plants grown from suckers will produce just as much fruit as any plant started from expensive seed packets months in advance, and the varieties are already proven performers in your local climate, because they came from a plant that was already thriving there. Can we talk about herbs for a moment? Because the herb section at any grocery store is one of the most underestimated free plant sources available to any gardener. Every bundle of fresh basil, every sprig of mint, every stem of oregano or rosemary you bring home from the store is a living cutting. It has already been cut. It is already conditioned to respond to water. And if you know one simple step, it will grow roots and become a permanent plant that supplies you with free herbs indefinitely. The technique works because most common culinary herbs belong to the mint family, a group of plants that evolved to propagate aggressively from cuttings in the wild. Take any young, flexible stem about 4 inches long. Strip the lower leaves off so you expose an inch or two of bare stem where the nodes, those small bumps where leaves attach, are visible. Set that bare section in a glass of water near a bright window. Within just a few days, you will see white roots threading out from those nodes. Once the roots are an inch or two long, transfer the cutting into a pot of soil and it will take off from there. Within weeks, you have an established herb plant. And here is the part most people miss completely. Once you have one plant, you have infinite plants. These herbs actively want to spread. Taking cuttings from your established plant does not harm it. It stimulates bushier, more productive growth. You can share cuttings, start more pots, move plants outside in summer, bring them back in for winter. Many experienced gardeners have never purchased a second herb plant after their first cutting took root. That is the kind of compounding return that changes how you think about gardening altogether. Here is something most people have walked past hundreds of times without realizing what they were looking at. Those white, umbrella-shaped clusters of tiny flowers that grow in masses along roadsides and in open fields during late spring and summer. In the United States, those are commonly known as Queen Anne's lace, and they are the direct wild ancestor of the carrots in your vegetable drawer. The seeds inside those dried flower heads are viable carrot seeds, free for the taking, often better adapted to local growing conditions than expensive hybrid packets sold in garden centers. When the flowers finish blooming and begin to brown and curl inward on themselves, they are fully loaded with seeds ready for harvest. Rub the dried heads between your palms over a bowl, and you will release dozens of seeds per flower. One afternoon of casual foraging can yield enough seed to plant a significant carrot patch. If you already grow carrots in your garden, you can generate your own seed supply even more easily. Simply allow 2 or 3 plants to remain in the ground past harvest time instead of pulling everything. They will overwinter, push up tall flower stalks the following spring, bloom, and set seed, scattering it naturally throughout your garden bed. The following year, volunteer carrot seedlings will appear without any planting effort on your part at all. Now let us talk about something that genuinely behaves like a financial investment. Walk into any grocery store, pick up a single bulb of garlic, and you are looking at 8 to 12 individual planting units. Every clove in that bulb is a complete self-contained plant. Separate them, push them into the soil pointed end up about 2 inches deep, and in one growing season, each clove becomes a full bulb containing 8 to 12 new cloves of its own. Think through what that means over just 2 seasons of growing. One grocery store bulb becomes 12 plants. 12 plants become 12 bulbs, potentially 144 individual cloves. 2 seasons in, you have enough garlic to last most households an entire year, and you still have seed garlic left over to plant again. That is an extraordinary return on a $3 grocery store purchase. The flavor difference between homegrown garlic and what you find in stores is worth mentioning too. Fresh, recently cured garlic from your own garden has layers of complexity and intensity that store-bought garlic, often months old and sometimes imported from thousands of miles away, simply cannot match. You can also grow specialty varieties, mild and sweet types, intensely hot varieties, purple-streaked heirloom cultivars that never appear on grocery store shelves at all. Garlic is perhaps the single most compelling argument for the idea that your kitchen is already stocked with better seeds than any catalog can offer. Now open your pantry and look at it differently than you ever have before. Those bags and canisters of dried beans, black beans, pinto beans, chickpeas, lentils, are not just food. They are seeds. Every single one of them is the literal seed of the plant that produced it, and most of them are completely viable for planting. The vegetable you eat is the seed, which means grocery stores are selling you planting material at a fraction of what seed companies charge for the same thing in small paper packets. The one adjustment you need to make is soaking time. Dried beans from the grocery store have been intentionally desiccated for shelf stability, which means they need longer rehydration before planting than fresh seeds do. Soak them overnight, 8 to 12 hours, before you put them in the ground. And because shelf age varies, plant generously. Sow more seeds than you think you need so that even if germination rates are somewhat reduced, you still end up with a full planting. The payoff is substantial. A single pinto bean plant produces dozens of pods over the course of a season. Each pod contains multiple beans. From a $2 bag of dried beans, you can easily harvest enough to fill your pantry back up, and then save seeds from the best plants to grow an even larger crop the following year. Let us talk about one of the fastest, most satisfying wins available to any gardener right now. Green onions from the grocery store are almost too easy to regrow. Cut the greens off for cooking, leave an inch of white attached to the roots, set them in a shallow glass of water on your windowsill, and within days the green tops are already reaching back upward. You can harvest and regrow the same plants 3 or 4 times before they finally exhaust themselves. For quick kitchen use, that is already an excellent return. But the advanced move, the one most people miss, takes this from a kitchen trick to a genuine garden strategy. Once those water-rooted green onions have established some root growth, transfer them into soil and let them grow completely unchecked. Given enough time and space, they will develop into full plants that produce flowers, and those flowers become dense seed heads absolutely packed with small, jet black seeds. Let those seeds scatter naturally across your garden beds, and you will find green onions appearing on their own, year after year, in between other crops. Harvest what you need, leave the rest, let more go to seed. Self-perpetuating, zero cost, continuously harvesting green onions throughout the growing season, all from a single grocery store bunch you bought once. And speaking of seeds hiding in plain sight, let us talk about what you are scooping out of your squash every autumn. The seeds inside pumpkins, butternut squash, acorn squash, and most other winter squashes are fully viable planting material. Most commonly available winter squashes are grown from traditional open-pollinated varieties rather than hybrid lines, which means their seeds will produce plants that closely resemble the parent. When you scoop those seeds out to roast or simply discard, you are throwing away next year's crop. The process is simple. Rinse the seeds thoroughly, spread them in a single layer on a dry surface, and allow them to dry completely over several days. Store them in a cool, dry place until planting season. When warm weather arrives, put them in the ground and step back. Winter squash plants are prolific almost beyond belief. A single well-grown plant can produce 3 to 8 large fruits over the course of a season. Each of those fruits contains dozens to hundreds of seeds. And unlike summer squash that needs to be eaten immediately, winter varieties store for months at room temperature without any processing at all, making them one of the best crops for anyone thinking seriously about food security and household resilience. Plant seeds from this year's Halloween pumpkin next spring. By the following autumn, you could have enough squash stored to carry you through winter. Now for the final crop, and possibly the most overlooked opportunity sitting in your kitchen right this moment. That onion in your produce drawer with the bright green shoots pushing out of the top is not spoiled. It is not past its prime. It is in the early stages of its reproductive cycle, and it is showing you exactly what to do with it. Plant it. When onions begin to sprout, they are redirecting their stored energy toward creating new bulbs. If you put that sprouted onion in the ground with the green shoots above the soil line, the original onion bulb acts as a nutritional reserve for the developing plant, while new bulbs begin forming in a cluster around the original. What emerges from the soil 3 to 4 months later is not one onion, it is a cluster, typically 4 to 8 new bulbs surrounding where the original was planted. You went from something you were about to throw away to a harvest of 8 onions. And the process works identically with yellow onions, white onions, red onions, sweet varieties, and shallots. Shallots in particular tend to produce especially generous clusters, sometimes branching into 10 or more new bulbs from a single planted sprout. Every time you see a sprouted onion from this point forward, it is not a problem. It is an opportunity. So here's the picture when you step back and look at all of this together. Your grocery store is not just a food source. It is a seed bank, a propagation nursery, and a plant library all in one. The pineapple crown, the sprouted potato, the tomato sucker, the herb cutting, the dried bean, the squash seed, the garlic clove, the sprouting onion. Every single one of these is a living organism with everything it needs to become a productive plant, asking only for soil, water, and a little time. What makes this approach so powerful is not just the money it saves, though turning kitchen scraps into food can easily save hundreds of dollars a year on both seeds and groceries. The deeper value is the independence it builds. When your garden can sustain and expand itself from materials you already have, you are no longer entirely dependent on seed catalogs, garden centers, or supply chains. You are operating the way skilled gardeners have always operated, observing, saving, multiplying, and feeding yourself from what the previous season left behind. Start small if you need to. Put a green onion in a glass of water on your windowsill today. Let a garlic clove find its way into a pot of soil. Save the seeds from your next butternut squash instead of rinsing them down the drain. These small acts compound. One cutting becomes 10 plants. 10 plants become a full herb garden. A single grocery store garlic bulb becomes a year's supply 2 seasons later. The gardening community has known this for generations. What changes right now is that you know it too. If this opened your eyes to what is already sitting in your kitchen, please give this video a like. It genuinely helps more people find this kind of content. And share it with someone who gardens or has been thinking about starting. My channel is dedicated to practical, real-world growing knowledge that works whether you have half an acre or a single windowsill. So if this is the kind of content you want more of, you already know what to do. Which of these crops are you going to start with first? Drop your answer in the comments. The community would love to know what you are growing, where you are growing it, and what you have already tried from your own kitchen experiments. Every comment, every shared experience makes this whole thing better for everyone who shows up here. Your kitchen is already a garden. It always has been. Now go prove it.